Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed away on 1/1/2020. We started together for Sharon.com in her memory. Today I want to welcome Dawn as our guest, but Dawn is someone who means a lot to me. I've actually known her for some time. She's interviewed with me before, but never able to actually talk on like we are going to be today, face to face or virtually. And she does so many things for the Parkinson's community, but what I really love is her honesty and her perseverance, because I know she'll share that she has some tough days, but seeing her fight makes me want to fight alongside. So I want to just welcome you, Dawn, and really grateful for your time and friendship.
Thanks, George.
Well, again, I just want to get right into it. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some of the first signs of Parkinson's that everybody might be curious about.
Well, my name is Dawn, as George mentioned. I'm currently 53. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's on 2011. I went to college in 2011. I was in my senior year of college, and I was getting ready to graduate with my bachelor's degree. And I was starting to experience some symptoms that was really weird. That my best friend noticed my symptoms before I did. I thought the symptoms I were having were just due to stress. I mean, getting ready for graduation, I was working full time. So working full time, going to school full time was really stressful. So I just chalked my symptoms as just being stressed. Well, it's just getting worse. More and more symptoms were appearing. My best friend, who we've been friends for over 23 years, she says, "Dawn, your speech is getting bad. You're starting to stutter." I was starting to trip a lot. I was starting my pinky finger and my left hand was starting to tremor. And I was like, it's just one thing after the other. My symptoms just started appearing. I thought I fell that September. I fell when I was tripping over a curb to go to my office, and I just thought, okay, I must have nerve damage, from the fall, because it's so I was like, okay, I mean, there just had to be, because what else could there be? I had never heard of Parkinson's before then. I never entered my mind. And she says, Dawn, I think you need to go see a doctor. So I went to my general doctor, and I was so shocked. I said, I told my doctor my symptoms and said, hey, I think got some kind of nerve damage. He goes, Donna, I'm sorry to tell you, but you don't have nerve damage. You've got Parkinson's. I'm like, what do you mean I've got Parkinson's? I was like, well, I don't even, he goes, and then that's where he had to explain to me. He goes, it's what Michael J. Fox has. And of course, at the time, that was clear back in 2011. I didn't see much. Michael J. Fox wasn't really that much in the news, at least not that I seen it, because I mean, I was going to school, so I didn't really have much time for TV.
Mhm.
So, and it's like he explained to me, and he goes, I was like, I still was in shock. I left the doctor's office. I'm like, this can't be true. I mean, there's no way I've got Parkinson's. Nobody in my family had it. So I was like, there's no way. So he referred me to a neurologist, and two neurologists back. He sent me to one neurologist, and then I went to get a second opinion, because like anybody else, you still don't want to believe it. So both neurologists that I seen both confirmed the diagnosis. So, and then from there, I'm like, I went spent for a few years in denial, of course, like I think some people do. You go through denial. I did tell my family and my friends that I have my diagnosis, but I like my symptoms weren't that bad. I mean, even though I had the symptoms, they weren't severe symptoms. Like my tremor was just a little slight tremor. My balance was a little off, but it wasn't severe. I mean, I wasn't falling a lot. I just fell just like that severe. That one time I hurt myself, broke the bone. Another time I had a little issues walking shortly after that. But I mean, it wasn't nothing significant that caused to alarm me or anything. So I wasn't too concerned. But it was a few years later, I don't remember exactly for sure, but I had a really bad fall. That's when reality set in. It's like, oh, there really is something to this disease, and that's where I did more research, and that began my real official journey with Parkinson's.
I want to thank you for sharing that and being a hero to many in the Parkinson's community, because one reason we met was because of social media. So I always say there's good things and bad things to social media, but the really positive one is bringing people like us together and the ability for you to share your journey. So thank you for that. maybe we could shift a little from Parkinson's and very important information that you shared. But how did you get into the world of not just TikTok, but online media and advocacy? That's something that not everyone can do because, as you know, we're all putting ourselves out there. We're no longer private, but I think it's incredible because it brings people out there who feel alone hope that they're not alone. Because many times, if you're not on social media before even COVID, a lot of people, like my mother, unfortunately, she suffered. She had me by her side, but we really felt alone the whole time. We didn't really know who to turn to. We didn't really have much with the social media. So I think it's a great place for people to turn to who may be struggling and think that they're alone. So what made you decide to kind of come out in a way in public and fight for a cure, but also share some intimate things? And you share things that I won't even share. Like, I stay away from politics, but I love that you do fight about all topics because I think honesty again is very important.
Well, honestly, it wasn't until 2022 that I actually officially started going on to social media. I didn't even know about TikTok or Instagram until my daughter mentioned to me. She says, "Hey, mom, I think you need to do this more on TikTok or Instagram." I was like, "Okay, how do I do it?" She had to set me up because I didn't have a clue on how to even start using these social media things. So she helped me she got me started. And the reason why I started doing it is in 2022, I had a major life event besides Parkinson's. Believe it or not, you think Parkinson's would have been enough. But in 2022, the fact that on the 27th of June, 2 years ago, I had a stroke. And the frustration from the stroke, besides being the fact of, anybody having a stroke scary enough.
Yeah.
But the thing that frustrated me the most was the treatment that I received at the hospital. Because I had Parkinson's, the hospital, they only focused on my symptoms of Parkinson's. They kept all my symptoms I had for the stroke were kind of similar as for Parkinson's, the slurred speech, the pain, the chest, heartburn. Well, they thought it was heartburn, which I come to find out later that they believe there could be issues. Something caused my stroke, and they don't know for sure if it was heart related. But I went to the ER twice before my stroke with chest pains. So, but like I said, the doctors kept putting me off, saying, "Okay, you got Parkinson's," and to the point that they were really rude to me. So when I was in pain, one of the dates that I went to the ER, they yelled at me and told me to shut up and stay still, which I thought was considerably rude to me. They treated me like I was just there going to get drugs because Parkinson's is really painful. So they treated me like I was a drug guy. Just all I want is drug, which I didn't even ask for drugs. So that began my journey of really actually going into social media. Because I knew that there has to be other people with Parkinson's that experienced what I did when I had my stroke. In fact, to kind of give you a little detail, when I had my stroke, to tell you how badly the hospital treated me, they said that I was the only reason why I was there because I was depressed with my Parkinson's and that I was having a mental breakdown, is what they told my family. They instead of taking the necessary test for stroke, they put me into a mental hospital for evaluation. Said it was all based on it's all in my head because of my Parkinson's depression. Well, it wasn't. After I got out, after the 20 whatever, I can't remember how many 24 48 hour hold for a thing, and my of course my symptoms got worse of the stroke, of course, because I didn't get treated for my stroke like I should have. So after we got out of the hospital, my family we went to the neurologist and say, "Look, you need to run an MRI. There's something wrong beyond Parkinson's." And that's when they did run a test. So a month to the day, they did another MR. They did an MRI, and they found out I did indeed have a stroke. So that's what really led me to start going to social media with TikTok, because I thought there has to be other people with Parkinson's that are getting dismissed by the hospitals,
Right.
because just because you got Parkinson's does not mean you can't get cancer. There's no reason why you can't get, strokes or heart attacks. But it's almost like when you have Parkinson's, people in the hospital environment, they dismiss you like it's just okay, it's just Parkinson's. And that really upset me.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, that's why we need to speak out and why I admire what you do, because there might be, and likely are people who have the same similar experiences. My mother, we believe, also had a stroke towards the last year, even though she was doing the toughest parts of Parkinson's as it progressed, because one side of her face started, drooping. We never really were able to identify it. And also, like you had, the hospitals weren't the best for South Florida and Parkinson's. And on top of all of that, it's just tragic as you go to the hospital thinking you'll get help and be kind, have great treatment, and some people just don't understand Parkinson's or aren't even aware at the hospital. So that's why I think it's important that you voice your opinion and your experiences. And I think, as I found out today, that you're an author, it's important to write also to get the word out there. So thanks for all you do. And sorry you had to go through that. Sounds a little similar to what my mother did. At this minute or moment, I want to just share a little bit more with Dawn and about Dawn. Let's see if this goes right. Can you see that? I wanted to thank you. Hopefully you can see your picture. Is that you?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I wanted to thank Dawn again and everyone listening. Please share this. Please support Dawn. And now we're going to talk about how we can support Dawn. She was amazing enough to also do an interview with me prior, and it's incredible. I always look at the date. So July of last year. So we've known each other for some time. And in a way, it's sad how quickly it goes, isn't it?
I
So
know, right?
wanted to thank you. Everyone can go to togetherforsharon.com, click interviews, and you can read more detail about with Dawn. And then I also want to share an important side, and this is her webpage, some place that I actually really check out a lot. And it'll show your, well, I'll let you talk maybe about tooshaky.com for a minute.
Well, yeah, I started tooshaky.com. Actually, it's my second website. I originally started when I wrote my book, which you mentioned earlier. I actually started a charity that I before my stroke. I started a charity to help people like with Parkinson's with medical expenses. Well, when I had my stroke, I couldn't function cognitively and I couldn't speak for some time to be able to keep that going. So, but I could still do but I could just start a website to at least educate people with Parkinson's. For that's why kind of why where tooshaky.com came into play. And I named it Too Shaky because, of course, like Parkinson's, we shake. So I was like, okay, it's Too Shaky. So it came from Dawn's Hope to tooshaky.com. My hope from tooshaky.com was to help people with Parkinson's. Like I noticed when I went to kind of give you an example, when I went to the neurologist, no, the neurologist never gave me information, not even a pamphlet to tell me what Parkinson's was or what I was going to experience as I progressed. Nothing. They told me literally nothing other than here, take this medication. That's pretty much all I got. So that was really shocking to me. I was like, okay, I had to do all the research myself. I'm like, that's crazy. And when I went to go do the research on the internet, I was like, there was so much information. It was so overwhelmed. I was so shocked on how much information there was. And I'm like, okay, I had to shift through all this data that I found to find out what was accurate and what's not, because, there's some things are over exaggerated and some are not. You don't want to make sure they're legit sites. So when I did find the places that were legit, that's when I put them on the website. So it's easier to access for people who are newly diagnosed. That was my hope. And what I do here in Missouri, I live in Missouri, I gave my website information to the neurologist. So now instead of the pamphlet, they can give my business card with my tooshaky.com website, and they can go, the doctor's given them a place to go, a resource to go to, so they can get more information. It's not my data. Like the information that I share on my website is not my data. It's like Parkinson's Foundation's, Michael J. Fox Foundation, the clinical, the places for clinical or research. It's just a way for you to click it to find it faster. So instead of you going through hundreds of web pages to try to find these places, I've done the research for you.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. And please go to tooshaky.com and support Dawn. And also, I showed a little bit about her artwork. I was impressed. So you've been accomplished a lot already, and I'm really, again, admire it. From artist to author to, person with Parkinson's, you definitely get a lot done. And I think that's admirable, but also leading the way in this fight for awareness, because I think the more you do, all of us do, and also the more we work together, we're definitely going to come closer to a cure. Don't want to shift for a moment. Actually, we just this just in. If we had sound effects, I would use it. I tried them and they didn't go too well. But Dawn, I just added to our list of books. So feel free to also go to togetherforsharon.com, click media and then books, and you'll see Dawn's actual book is here. There's a photo, and if you click the link, it'll actually go right to the place to purchase, which is very, very reasonable these days. My book can't compare with this price, so great job. But it's, we don't do this for the money, as you know. But please, again, go to togetherforsharon.com. You can find Dawn's interview and her book, and then it'll link right to Amazon where you can actually purchase a copy. I will be, and it's very important that we keep this going and out there in the world to gain more awareness. So I don't know if you wanted to just tell us shortly about the book and maybe, what caused you to want to write a book. That's no easy feat.
Well, the book is kind of a three-part book. It starts off my book with talking about the point of my Parkinson's diagnosis and talks about what Parkinson's is, and kind of gives you some rundown what kind of symptoms I had. The second part of my book, I talk about my childhood growing up. I I often wondered, it's always been a question in my mind, did I get Parkinson's because of my childhood? I had a pretty stressful childhood, not only in the whole life I've had stress. Because my dad, I was sexually abused by my father as a child, and then I was also bullied by kids in school. So I was getting it from all ends, not only at home, but I was getting it at school as well. So I wanted to. My dad is a reformed alcoholic, so my dad's changed his life. So I don't want to bash my dad because I've forgiven my father, and he's a changed man. He's found God, and he doesn't drink anymore. And all and it's like, so this is not to top bash him, but the book started because I wanted to bring awareness to Parkinson's, but also I wanted to. I noticed there were some people who, like me, who had PTSD, for instance, that many people with Parkinson's diagnosis had some kind of stressful life, stress in their life. Maybe they were abused themselves, or maybe they just had work stress because they can't handle stress at work, possibly. But I started to notice a pattern with people with Parkinson's. It seems like even Michael J. Fox mentioned, I think, in one of his books about how the stress of becoming an actor and getting out there trying to, and how broke he was and how stressful that was for him. So I kind of wondered if stress played a big factor in Parkinson's. So that's kind of why I put them all together, because I don't know if there's been any. That's one thing I should do. I need to do some research on. How they probably have to do a survey to find out how many people with Parkinson's, or and we know stress affects Parkinson's, but I wonder how many of those people that have been diagnosed. I mean, was there anybody with Parkinson's that wasn't stressed? Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I started it.
Well, these are some really important topics. As I'm also a police officer and a lawyer and PhD, and I teach a lot of these topics. And it's important that we don't just bring awareness to Parkinson's disease, but also to things from the childhood. It really does shape an individual. And again, I'm amazed and admire that you came on top of all this and are able to share these journeys. One other area I want to share, which we won't have a lot of time because I want to get to the fun part, which is more about you, not just about Parkinson, but I know we have a little bit of a PowerPoint. I kind of had to cut it a little, but at least we can kind of talk about it. If I can get this thing going now. Yeah. So maybe you can talk. I mean, I know what we mentioned before we logged on or started that I'll be looking into writing a book on the law in Parkinson's. And when I saw your work and a lot of things you discussed, it's so on target of what's needed. There's just not enough out there. I know when I do a lot of shows, I don't have the time to go through some of the smaller topics, but these smaller topics are actually more important than some of the other topics. So hopefully everyone out there listening, will see Dawn and I working together in the future, I hope. So maybe just kind of shortly, or not quickly, but I wish we had an hour, so this could be a 4-hour lecture on this topic, but maybe you could just touch on these areas because I know they affected you personally.
Yeah, the disability process was very difficult for me. It was made especially difficult because at the time I was doing this myself. I was in the middle of I had a stroke. So, so I had the stroke in June 27th, and then I started falling out. When I realized that my cognitive ability and I really didn't think I was going to recover. To be honest with you, I couldn't even remember my family's names. I knew that I had a daughter and my parents, but I didn't know what their names were. So I was scared that I wouldn't recover my memories that I had lost. So that's when I began the process of filling a disability. And I was so shocked. I had thought when I contacted the Social Security Administration, that I would get help. You would think, right? You go to Social Security Administration, somebody would help you. Well, I don't know if it's because there were some people, they were short staffed or what, because there's the 20, you just think it's 2022. It wasn't too far after COVID started and the people were still going back to work. So I don't know if that was part of the issue, but I got absolutely no help. I had to fill out this application myself. My family tried to help, but unfortunately they had no experience with disability either. So, so I was on my own. So luckily I pieced together and I ended up going to someone. I went to the Social Security office. They weren't no help. So they gave me the website. So I went to their website and that's where I submitted my application. And the doctor, I was really lucky on my part of the Social Security process, because my neurologist didn't even fight my disability. Sometimes you have to, from my experience from other people that I've talked to now, they have trouble with either doctor filling out the information or they have to have multiple doctors. But because I had a stroke and I had Parkinson's, and the fact that the hospital messed up and I missed not catching my stroke, I think all those things combined sped mine along. So my doctor immediately, because he was so apologetic when he found out I really had a stroke, because he was so shocked when he called me. He said, "I can't believe you did have a stroke." That I was telling the truth. But so he immediately filled that paperwork. I didn't. He immediately sent that in the Social Security Administration, and because of the fact that the hospital sent me to the, I don't know if everybody gets this when you go to Social Security or not, but usually when the Social Security Administration contacts you, you meet with a doctor, either a doctor or a psychologist. Well, I met with a psychologist. So I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it's common that you do miss with a psychologist or you just do a doctor or you do both. I'm not sure. But I met with a psychologist who I met. And basically she had the questions she had was like, she asked me questions about long-term and short-term memories. She was asking me questions. Well, at the time that she asked these questions, like I said, it was horrible. My cognitive ability was non-existent at that time. So I think she could clearly tell that in the interview. So they were pretty quick on proving my disability. I mean, it took me 10 minutes from the time, 10 months from the time that I applied to be approved for the Social Security disability.
Thank you. Yeah, I think disability is such an important area as an attorney, but I don't think we have enough people out there talking about it. There's a lot of areas that people should be more aware. I wasn't when I was going through this with my mother. I don't know if you have these. I wanted to talk a minute so about insurance, and then a really important one we can touch on is the cost. But do you have? I don't know if you share these PowerPoints with anyone out there if they were interested.
Yeah, I mean, you can share them. I just started
Okay.
working on them, but
Go.
yeah,
And
these are the ones that I thought were the most important for as far as going starting on the disability process. Because something that I learned in the process was when I filed for when I lost my job, I lost my insurance, right? Well, it just so happened I worked with insurance, by the way. I was an ASI Cobra employee, so I actually helped other people who lost their jobs from either illness or lost their job just because they were fired or layoffs. So that I helped other people get insurance. So I kind of knew about the insurance aspect of for Cobra anyway. But what I wasn't aware of when I lost my job was the fact that Cobra only lasts only so many months. Well, Cobra insurance is very expensive. Excuse me, And I couldn't afford it. When you're not working and you're not bringing an income, how are you supposed to pay for the Cobra insurance? So I applied for Medicaid. So that's what the kind of gets this ball going. Well, when I won Medicaid, I didn't get qualified for Medicaid because I still had unused vacation time. I still had a 401k. Medicaid refused to help me because I had cash assets from my 401k. So I had to spend on my 401k and then I have to reapply for Medicaid before they would, so before I could even get Medicaid.
It's amazing the costs. My mother didn't have long-term insurance because we didn't know that we would ever have that. You know, she didn't even know that this would be more towards the end of life. So there's a lot of important areas. So costs of Parkinson's is another very important topic. If I have to grab a pen just to say how important these topics are, because when we talk about and air this, I want everyone to know that we hit on some of these important topics. I don't think I've ever even discussed this. I do in my book, but we've spent about $12,000 a month on just trying to have aids around my mother so she wouldn't fall. And that's not reasonable or affordable for most people. But that's not even counting, the medical expenses, the food, the cost of living, rent, and all the other things. So we were probably spending almost 20,000 a month for the last year of her life, but I didn't want her to feel, that she wasn't comfortable or safe. So you get into this area if you can touch, somewhat about it, and then we'll get back to a little bit more about Dawn.
Okay. Yeah, the cost of parks is crazy. That was surprising to me, and it's really important. Why it's so important for the cost of Parkinson's is more young people are diagnosed with Parkinson's. That's the young onset Parkinson's is a group of 50 and under at the time of diagnosis, and typically, they believed, that Parkinson's affected older people, but because of the fact younger people are now they're finding more and more people, either they were misdiagnosed, or the doctors didn't know what they had because, like I say, it wasn't typically a young person's disease until Michael J. Fox brought it to that in the open. So I think now there's more doctors say, "Oh, okay, I didn't, they weren't aware of that." So now that the awareness from Michael J. Fox and others like him have brought it forth, I think the more younger people are diagnosed. So the cost of Parkinson, that aspect for the young person is, well, they're going to have to they're going to need help sooner. They're not going to be able to work to full retirement age like somebody that's already on Social Security. So there's going to be more the cost of that of more people filing for Social Security disabilities is going to increase. And because it takes two incomes to live anymore, that it's going to be hard for, unless you're somebody like you say yourself, who can afford to pay for somebody to be home care. Then most people can't. That there's a cost there. So most people that are young, like myself, may have to go to a nursing home because their spouse or partner, not going to be able to afford to take care of them at home, which is really kind of sad. And the cost of nursing homes. And my mom's currently in a nursing home, and the average cost of a nursing home is $9,034 per month. And that tells you, and typically that's covered. The cost of the nursing home is usually covered by Medicaid. And as you know, if you're familiar, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but that in my mom's case, she's considered low income, so clearly she can't afford to pay $9,034 per month. So Medicaid has to pay for the difference of what what they do is they take her Social Security to check, and that the government pays the difference, which is usually, and the Medicaid is funded by the state primarily. And as you know, that comes back to us taxpayers. What's going to what that's equivalent to.
Thanks for really bringing up and touching on a very important topic that I think needs to have more awareness, which is the cost of Parkinson's. And again, it sounds like a great chapter or a few for a book and possibly in the future. So now I wanted to shift and thank you again for joining me, but more about you. So more about Dawn. Can you list 3 words that might describe who you are? This is where we get to the tough topics, tough question.
Hmm. Well, 3 words that talks about me. I like to think that I care about others. It's been my goal, even before I started doing the too shaky. And like I said, even before my book, my goal was to create, a charity, like kind of like yourself, to help other people with expenses, because I know how expensive Parkinson's can be. So I've always cared about other people. I always wanted, I know how much I struggled, so I want to make sure that other people don't struggle either. Sometimes people, I think, which if a negative side of me is people think that I'm too negative, possibly because I talk about stuff like this. It makes some people don't like to hear about the bad things with Parkinson's. I think sometimes they'd rather bury their head in the sand, and they don't want to face it because it makes them uncomfortable. Probably kind of like somebody with cancer or any kind of disease like MS or cancer. Nobody likes talking about the bad part of the disease, and sometimes people think you're too depressing and too negative in that aspect. I mean, how are you supposed to be happy? It's a disease. I mean, how do you make it cheerful? And unfortunately, it's kind of like the pet, like the Humane Society. They always put the sick puppies and stuff. Nobody help if you're cheerful about a disease. People are not going to, who's going to donate for some charity that's if it's not something that's positive, right? I don't want to say you can't. I'm just saying that there's more money coming from the sadness of a disease or the sick animal than is somebody who's all cheerful and bubbly. Oh, that person looks fine. But I'm more of a, like I said, I'm more of an educator, is what I like to think. And I want to be a real kind of person. I don't want to be somebody who's fake. I want to be real. I want to be the real kind. I don't want to be a fake person. I want people to know the real me, the good, bad, and ugly is what I want to say it.
And I think we're very, very, very similar in our beliefs because my book is not the easiest to read. I don't know if you had the chance to see it, but there are chapters I tell people you might want to skip because one is the last year of my mother's life. But I thought it was important to put out there so people can see what Parkinson does. Obviously, it affects everyone so differently. That's why there's no cure. So what happened to my mother and our journey does not mean it'll happen to someone else. But if they are interested and curious to see, all the stages literally lived out for Parkinson's. You will see it up close and personal, and the side of the caregiver, which there's nothing I saw out there like that. So I agree with you 100%. We have we have a beginning, middle, and end of life, but a lot of people don't want to talk about the end of life, and I do because I think you can actually plan, you can prepare, and you can actually save your family a lot of heartbreak if you do discuss these topics. And like I said, there's so many legal issues that are so important. And you talked about disability, some of the most important ones. And I'm just fascinated and appreciative that you do that. How about what's one moment, if you had, that stands out in all of your work with awareness that you could share? So the one, maybe your favorite moment, could be on TikTok or social media, or maybe it was your book, but maybe you can touch on what was that one most important moment.
I think I've had several people contact me personally. They don't make a comment. I think some people don't feel comfortable making comments on my page, but I've had several people reach out to me on the like into a chat or like a messenger or something, and they've told me they appreciate the fact that they appreciate that I was being real about my disease, and that I didn't hide my displeasure with the disease, that I was up. Because one person told me, this one gentleman told me, he says that he feels like he can't be honest about his disease because he feels like he's got to pretend he's putting on a face front with his family and friends. He tells everybody that he's fine when in reality he's not fine. But he by me being honest and saying, hey, this disease really is a bad disease, and it's like there's times it's really miserable, and that you don't hide your depression, you don't hide your symptoms, and that he really appreciates that I'm so out. I wish I had a quote to what he said to me, because it really touched my heart. The fact that, because I thought, okay, because one guy told me, okay, I'm too negative. But so he from somebody else on the messenger and say, hey, he appreciated that to keep doing what I'm doing, that at least I was being real, and that he wished he could be more, honest with his symptoms and with his family, with how he felt with the disease.
As you know, I love your honesty, and I have no problem commenting how amazing I think your posts are and your honesty. And you see, if you look on TikTok, I like so many things. I think someone told me don't do that because you could be shadow banned, and I don't even know what that means. But I have to like what I love, and I love what you do and all your posts on TikTok. So everyone listening, please follow Dawn. Can you share your username on TikTok and on any other social media?
I primarily show my stuff on TikTok. It's not that I'm trying to get into more Instagram now because that's scare with TikTok that they
Right.
might possibly show.
I wrote
So
it
I
out.
start, yeah, so I try to use more
What's your
Instagram.
username for
Uh,
if everyone wants to follow you, what's your username?
through TikTok, or are you talking through Instagram?
TikTok, TikTok.
Well, I'm not sure actually. I know I've got it under
Shaky,
too
isn't it
shake.
shaky? I think it's too shaky. I thought it was.
Yeah, it's too shaky. I had it changed to my personal, and I changed it to too shaky to my
All
just
right.
my website.
Well, thanks. Here's one question that means a lot to me since it's from more of a caregiver point of view. But who helps you during times of struggle? I was a caregiver. What tips can you give to those listening who are caregivers?
Oh, the caregivers. I'm doing my best to educate my family because I think it's been the hardest for the family because like yourself, as you found that because when somebody with Parkinson's looks fine and you look like me, or like today I'm having a good day, it's hard for your family to see how bad you are, that you're not they want to believe. I think they're in denial that you're not they think you're healthy when you're really not. So then when something happens like my stroke or something like happens where you get hospitalized, it's shock to the family.
Well,
So my advice to caregivers is to when your family is trying to give you some to tell you hey how they feel, don't try to bury your head in the sand. Please listen to the because the patient will the person who's sick like Parkinson's, they're going to tell you in ways it may not be visual that they can see, but you can kind of tell. They might kind of like, for instance, I've got a family member with it that had MS. She when she got to the point where she was her disease was progressing, she started staying away from people. She started, like kind of holding herself at home. So sometimes that person looked fine when you visited her, but you can see her pulling away. So pay attention to the cues that you're getting from your mother, your sister, your brother, whoever it is with Parkinson's. They're going to give you cues even if they don't say something.
thank you. And one final question is, if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
Well, not to give up. I know in my book I show a lot about that I when I was a child that I thought suicides when I was younger, but I firmly believe that God gave us the disease as as God doesn't give you disease. I believe there's other things give you disease, but I do believe that there's a reason for it. There's a reason why I was given Parkinson's, maybe to educate other people about the disease. We're all going to die of something, right? So my thing is kind of like Michael J. Fox. I want to help other people, so that I feel like that's what God's gift to me is to help other people understand Parkinson's. And honestly, Parkinson's diagnosis actually opened my eyes. I think it made me a better person, and I think most people with Parkinson's, even Michael J. Fox will even say himself, Parkinson's gives you a different aspect of the way of looking at life. I think before my Parkinson's diagnosis, I just took life for granted.
Mm.
After my diagnosis, I learned to appreciate my life a little bit more. I appreciate people around me a little bit more. So I think that while there's not a cure right now, there's still a lot of clinical trials out there. And at any time, you like, for instance, I'm getting ready to start I'm hoping to I've applied for a clinical trial, so I'm hoping to begin one here pretty soon. I'm hoping I'm picked, but who knows? That one clinical trial that you do might be the cure.
Yeah.
It may slow the progression. So there's always hope. Is my thing. Just don't give up. Is my advice for people with Parkinson's or any disease for that matter.
Well, you have a beautiful story, and I love the message that you really create 24/7. I find we have a lot of similarities, and I still think we're family in this fight for a cure. So I just want to thank you for your friendship and your time today. I have a little message for you and everyone listening. We always end with, we love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Dawn, will advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started because honestly, I've been doing this for some time, but every time I go on TikTok and see you and your posts, and sometimes the struggle, but also the positives, and you really just motivate me to, I won't say not sleep, but it's true, because I don't want anyone to have to keep fighting this disease. So until there is a cure, you can always count on me to stand right by your side, and we'll keep fighting together. So I just want to say I'm grateful again for your time today. And, everyone listening, please visit Dawn's the website. Please purchase her book. You can get it. I'm going to put notes too under the show. So you can get a direct link. You can visit togetherforsharon.com and click books or interviews, and you'll see a lot more about Dawn because there's just so much more to share. And please follow her too on TikTok and also on Instagram. And again, no one is alone in this fight. So thank you again, Dawn. Your time means the world to me.
Thank you so much, George.
Thanks, and thanks everyone listening. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. Stay tuned. We have a lot more incredible guests, inspiring people. But like I always say, even though the national plan to end Parkinson's disease passed, we still have a lot of work. So please contact your representatives, your politicians, because we have to make sure they implement it. But there's a lot of positive coming, a lot of hope. And again, stay tuned to the show and please follow Dawn. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.